Now, you've seen the things about Navalny. It's just a few dozen people.
Putting flowers and being
getting
extraordinarily
arrested.
brave.
Yes. Extraordinarily brave. And so that remains. Perhaps we can move on to China, Taiwan later, but it's the same argument with Taiwan. They won't say whether they will or won't fight, the strategic ambiguity on that. In the event that it came to it, and I don't think it will, by the way, I don't think there will be an invasion of Taiwan this decade. I've been arguing that for 4 years.
You don't think Xi would want to seal up his legacy, as it were?
I think he'd love to, but let's try and come back to that. Sorry, because I've lost my train of thought already on Ukraine. But if they didn't fight for Taiwan, at that point, what is the point of being an American ally? The Philippines might as well switch to China. South Korea might as well say, your troops can go home. Japan might even go nuclear. There's all sorts of ramifications. And it's tied also to Ukraine, because if you give up and you allow this victory there, how emboldened is Xi to act the way they want throughout the South China Sea and the international sea lanes enormously, and to prod somewhere. And there's another one as well, which is big theory stuff, but yes, the Americans came to help us in 1917 when they weren't sure who was going to win. It took them 3 years. That's not a complaint. And then they came back again in 44, 41. And then they came back in the Cold War. And partially, you could argue a little bit in Ukraine. The reason every single time is that America does not want one massive dominant power in Europe. Because if there's one dominant power, Nazi Germany, which has reached the shores of the Atlantic and is now looking where to go next, it's pretty obvious. So the Americans come to Europe and help it at a time to make sure that no one major power, Russia, Soviet Union, Germany, can dominate it, because then it could be a rival to them. And that case is not made to the American people about what's in it for them. I was in Beirut in 2006 for the Hezbollah Israel war. The Israelis bought themselves 10 years of peace, of quiet, up in the northern border. By the way, something like 60,000 of their population are still in hotels. I mean, I'm not comparing the scale of suffering, but the strain on the Israeli economy is another factor in getting this done. All the vineyards and fields, and they're all empty.
But won't there be people in Israeli society who now believe that Netanyahu's strategy, which has been for the last 20 years, I'm keeping you safe, guys, that has failed?
This is the big thing this year, because the Israeli election will be held as soon as they can, as soon as this is finished, because, there's a whole, all these moving parts are moving here. Okay, briefly on the Israelis. We will get an idea in the election of whether the peace camp can grow again, because it's been shrunk over the years. And people that would back a two-state solution with various conditions can come back to power. I doubt it, but it's possible. On the other side, the two-state solution will be led by the Saudis, probably, holding the carrot of normalization of relations with Israel, which makes economic sense brilliantly for both of them, and militarily as well, because vis-a-vis Iran, because this is the Iranian strategic nightmare, their biggest Arab foe and their biggest military foe suddenly, because the UAE, I mean, the Saudis have been friends with the Israelis for years, actually. It's just that you can't,
you don't talk about it.
You don't talk about it. Yeah. I mean, when I remember being in the UAE, and they told me that this was before it was the public, they buried the hatchet. The people that fitted all the microphones into all the listening devices in the UAE was the Israeli companies that they've been bringing in for years. They've been great friends for years. And then you agree a two-state solution, living side by side, lots of trade. The problem is, on both sides, you will have people that will wreck it.
Yes.
You'll have the Hamas ideologues who believe that the land between the river and the sea is what's called a waqf, which is that it was given by Allah to Muslims, and only Muslims, nobody else. It's a waqf. And therefore, we cannot have an Israeli state, and they will wreck it. And on the other side, you've got the type of people that are settlers, the right-wing religious settlers. And in the Israeli government system, it's always a coalition. And I don't see how you're going to get a coalition that hasn't got the right wing in it, because they're big enough now. And the moment you sign a deal that says pull all these settlers out of the West Bank, they will collapse the government, and there is no deal. So you have to get past the internal politics of the two countries as well as the external politics, which is why I think you'll go back to managing the situation.